And welcome, folks, to this week's edition of the Check-In with the Doctor. I am, of course, your host, Chris White, and I am unbelievably delighted to welcome this week's guest. It's a gentleman who seems to be everywhere these days in the pre-sales circles. He has published a map that we're going to be talking about a little bit. He has been working on a book that I actually happen to have here in my hands, and I've just completed reading myself, Mr. Patrick Pissang. I hope I said that correctly with the right German emphasis, Patrick. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much for taking some time and joining. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Weather is not doing well, but I am. I'm alone at home, so the world is good, right?
The world is good. In spite of a lot of things that are happening in the world is good. And indeed, the pre-sales world is doing well, and people like yourself and me and so many others are, I think, enjoying this sort of wave of momentum around pre-sales. Patrick, in the unlikely event, anybody who may be joining us, and incidentally, if we do have anybody joining us, I welcome you to say hello. I invite you to ask Patrick any questions if you have any questions. Do you mind introducing yourself? You have quite a career. I mean, you're with MuleSoft and Salesforce and IBM. Do you mind taking a minute and just introducing sort of yourself a little bit more formally?
Yes, sure. So I'm Patrick. I'm 40 years old by now. Oh gosh, that sounds crazy. So I this year. I have 2 daughters, 7 and 5. I have a beautiful wife. I'm married anyway, and I'm in love also with sales engineering, right? So I love the challenge of sales and merging this with technology. And I worked for a long time at a smaller German company. We got acquired by an American company that got acquired by IBM. So I ended up with IBM as an integration architect, right? So I was really at the back end of all things. We managed teams in Belarus, for example, who implemented for us. I did product management and all those things. So everything the back end you can think of. And then one day MuleSoft came along, so better a headhunter, and she was actually pushing me into that. Right? Yeah, that was a funny story, but she made me join all and the saddest thing was in 2014 I joined MuleSoft. The first year as pre-sales, it was horrible. I made no deals, right? I was placed in DACH as the only one, and we got some account executives who moved in and out, right? Because there was no focus on that. And yeah, after a year, I decided, no, I change everything I do. and if it works, good. If not, also good, right? So, and this is where I started using different tools and approaches, and I said, it doesn't matter, right? I will go into this deal not like a backend guy, but like a sales guy in that sense. And that's also in your book, right?
Yeah.
I have your book here. At the very beginning, I love this because you say, guys, you're in sales. And this is actually the big truth in here, I think. You're in sales, and everything else follows by that, right? Once you realize that, the other steps are natural. You're not a consultant, right? You're not a coder, right? You love technology, and that's it. And the same thing happened for me. And yeah, then we became quite successful at MuleSoft. We got acquired by Salesforce, and this was the day I thought, okay, I want to actually write novels. So the first thing I did after pre-sales, I thought, do you see one of my novels?
Yeah.
It's a German. I write in German, right? And I thought, I want to do this as a living, right? And then I started writing. And realized this is tough. We'll need some years to build up. So I refocused and thought, okay, I was coaching a lot, but I invented methodologies that we used in deals, right? And I was lucky to have AEs that supported that, and the management who supported like trying out new approaches, right? And when they were successful, we productized them as a sales asset. And then, I had the pleasure to train this worldwide to the team. It was amazing. There was so much momentum, and I thought, okay, that's must be something I can do, right? And I'm quite emotional about. So why not put this into practice? And after 2 years doing this year I founded actually a corporation to do this more professionally based on a real company. So I'm now the only employee. My wife is actually also an employee. But of course I want to grow this, and I want to grow the creative approaches for sales employees. That's what I want to do. That's what I do.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations. I mean, what an unbelievable story. And ours is very similar. I think it took me a few more years to get to, because I've got about 12 or 13 years on you in age. So, I was in the field as an IT architect, as an enterprise architect for 15 years. And then 15 years into my career, I got my first pre-sales job. And similar to your story, I didn't know what I was doing for the first 3, 4, 5 months, right? And, people have heard me say I thought I was going to be brilliant because I could move a mouse and talk at the same time, right? And I found out very quickly there's a lot more to being a sales engineer than just being good in front of an audience. As you reflect on that first year as a pre-sales, and then when you realized you needed to change and do something different, is there anything in particular that really stands out to you as sort of the one or two things that flipped for you and you went, this is what I need to do differently. This is what I need to change about the way I'm approaching this.
But the revelation came now, right? In the years when you start training, when I started training people in 2018, the revelation came. I didn't know at this time, but I know now, I think. So the first is I got a manager who was really, really experienced, right? Today, I would say that it was the best manager I ever had. He was a kind of mentor. That's Paul Current, if you watch that Paul. And he gave me the freedom to do whatever is needed, right? So pushed me some way. So, and this was the correct environment for me. Right? That's not true for everybody. I see this. But for me, it was completely the right thing. So I could just do, right? Could be creative. And whenever I had a plan, he said, go for it, right? And if it failed, it failed, right? But if not, everybody was happy. That was the first thing. And the second thing is, what MuleSoft did was actually a category play. What does that mean? It means MuleSoft was inventing a category called API-led connectivity. And this changed also after a year when I was in there, right? And now I understand with this category play, we invented a new methodology, a new way to go into the market. And that offered a lot of headroom for me to invent and to shape deals, right? And the most powerful thing, I'm telling this everyone I'm consulting or training, have a methodology. Don't have just your tooling, but be aware how to use that. Tell your client a new way to do that, right? In a non-traditional way. So the example is always traditional ways to publish a book is you need a publisher, right? You know, and I know that's not true anymore. Right?
Not true anymore.
You can upload this to Amazon. So this is a new methodology. Right? So the product is still a book, and you can write the best book, but then you can tell your client, well, our methodology is, right? And if you combine those things, the whole sales field becomes more powerful. The whole sales becomes more powerful. Your position becomes powerful because you show insights. Okay, and based on this changed methodology, we could create a lot of assets, new stuff, new things, how to look at the integration market. And I think this changed a lot.
I so love that. And incidentally, there's a few guys chiming in online. We got to show some love to our man, Kerry Sokolsky. Good to see you. George Soto from Reprise is on. Kyle MacArthur. Good to see you guys. So many of the things that you just said, Patrick, resonate with me so much. You talked about a methodology, and I'm going to sort of use my own word, is a story, right? And in fact, I mean, we see a lot of demo automation in the space, and new vendors coming into play, which ties into the map that at some point we'll talk about. But as a sales engineer, we have to have a story. We have to have don't just show up with the tool, right? Have a story, right? And an approach as to how to get the most out of the tool, the platform, et cetera, right? And that's really what you're saying. And that's actually a very good segue into the book. So the book is The Social Sales Engineer. And the subtitle is Journey to Thought Leadership. I have read the book now cover to cover. It's a fabulous book. I learned a few things myself, and I'll submit to you and anybody and everyone that, to me, it's as valuable for anyone who wants to be or move into a thought leadership position or role as it is just sales engineers. So for what inspired you to write the book, and what inspired you to take this sort of focus area on thought leadership?
So big kudos on Don Carmichael. I meet with him regularly since, I think, 1 or 2 years now. It must be over a year, because the book, the inception was a year ago in June. And we spoke about this very topic. And we speak every 3 to 4 weeks. He's my mentor, but he always says, go away, I'm not your mentor, right? We're fighting about this. That's very fun. And the inception was with him, and we thought we could add value and write this together. I started writing because I love writing. I write in my novels, right? So I just typed, and Don at some point said, I give up. So he did the foreword, and but he is still also the father in some way of the idea. So this was the inception, very straightforward. Today, and talking to a lot of leaders, managers of sales engineers, and what I try to give them is this idea of, if your guys or girls, of course, if they join a call with a client, right, the discovery call, and the client says, oh, I know you, or I have the feeling I know you because I read your post, I saw your YouTube, I don't know, whatever it is, right? That's so valuable. You can't pay for that, right? Mm. And I would even go a step further and say, when you work with account executives and they go to the client the first time and they say, okay, the next step is the demo or discovery, they have to tell the client, look this guy up on LinkedIn, or the girl. Sorry, I don't want to forget girls. There are way too less in sales engineering. But look those people up. Look the expert up. They're on LinkedIn and their profile is charm, right? And you will find a lot of value. So when then the discovery call comes, this is gold, because you turn the whole thing around. And this is again what I mean with differentiation. How can you differentiate? Build those things in your sales cycle, and you will differentiate, right? Yeah. And this is the power of creativity and thinking a bit out of the box. And this is what I want to give sales engineers.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's just such a powerful message for any sales engineer out there. If you really want to elevate your brand, your personal brand, elevate your value in the market, become a thought leader in your space. You don't necessarily have to become a thought, Patrick and I, would like to believe that we're becoming thought leaders in the SE space, right? And hopefully, doing things like this helps out a little bit anyways. But I think it's so powerful, this notion that pre-sales sales engineers can become thought leaders in the space. And if I may, I'll just make a plug for the book. So in the book, Patrick introduces us to a fictitious character named Elias, and we sort of witness Elias's journey through this sort of thought leadership evolution, if I may. And I love the way you've written it. Each chapter is just a couple of pages, and you sort of go back and forth between thought leadership, sort of best practices, and sort of Elias's story. And I asked you, how much of Elias's story is your story? Now, when you reflect on sort of the journey that you've been on, right, what are some of the key things that you've learned? And in hindsight, is there anything that you would have done differently yourself sort of on this journey?
And that's funny, because I saw one of your guys who read the book, and they always say something like, I wish I had read this before, right, 20 years ago.
Right.
You would never be there where you are. You would never have learned what you know. So this comment is nice, but I don't think it's true. So you wouldn't be that far, right? And it's not my story. Don and me are arguing about the end. The end could be a bit of our story, a mix. So that's about the ending, or maybe even your story, right? I'm sure you found yourself in the ending again. But yeah, the story is based actually on a storytelling framework. So the very thing I teach, so it's the hero's journey. It's also the thing, like I name my course, right? So I want to get the students through trouble, right? So they learn, right? Because they overcome conflicts and roadblocks, right? And in the same way, the book is written, and then the thought leadership principles fall in place. And I had professional help, of course, right? So I'm self-publishing, but you need editors. You need people who understand publishing and who give this second view, right? I don't know if this is the right wording. And of course, beta readers like you agreed to read it. This helps so much. This feedback is without this, a book would not work.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. There's so much power in storytelling, and let's be fair. Incidentally, Amanda Bertucci says thanks for not forgetting about the women in pre-sales. So Amanda, thanks for chiming in. It's good to see you as well. And I just got to do a quick shout out to Jared Killeran as well. He's been a pretty loyal fan and follower. Jared, nice to see you as well. We talk a lot about storytelling in the pre-sales community, and I think there's a lot of sort of, to a certain degree, I think, lip service, and I love the way you've actually, quote, demonstrated, if I can use that term, storytelling and integrating storytelling in with your book and the concepts in your book. How does that translate to delivering a demo, and what are some of the, or what is some of the advice that you give to pre-sales, very, very specifically, in a very tactical manner around storytelling?
I just joined a quarterly business meeting of sales engineers, and what we did there, we use a very concrete storytelling technique called pain, agitate, and solve. That actually comes from creative writing, and it's very simple to follow, although you need to think about it, right? So the idea is that you start always with the pain, so that's 1-2 sentences, just explaining the pain of your client, for example, right? And then you agitate this thing, and you go really, really deep, and you need this emotional work, right? So like the client or the reader really feels, oh, I'm sweating, and there's so much power in this, and then there's the solve part where you resolve it and present yourself as a guide who can solve the problem together with the solution, right? But you should position yourself and the solution, of course. So that's a very simple framework, and we storytell this and go through this together. We wordsmith what the outcome. So we look at very concrete techniques on how do I start sentences, which nouns to use, right? Are there repetitions in that? So, and to get it concise. And the last step is funny because there's a tool we then upload this to where you create professional looking teaser video, right? Today I just saw one of those sales engineers I trained. They built an app on the Salesforce App Exchange, and he made a commercial teaser video using this tool. And I was very proud because he used the framework and came up with a very nice video. So that's very specific, and maybe it plays into the limbic opener of demo to win, right? When you need such a thing, tell me, and I show you how this thing works for your team. It's a lot of fun to do that. And it's quick to learn. And when you mastered it, you need 20 minutes. Great. Professional looking video or demo. If you need it for consensus, for example, you can upload consensus and use it there, or use it for a demo, or I don't know, on your LinkedIn profile, right? For any purpose where you think I need fresh air, and something that gives me some nice feelings in meetings, for example.
Yeah.
It can really
so pain, agitate, solve.
Yes.
I love that model. And you mentioned there's a link on the SAP, or I'm sorry, the Salesforce like app store or something.
App Exchange. They build an app. So it handles your data and while you're on vacation, and that's how I understood it. And and he made a video about this.
Yeah, we may have to put the link to that YouTube. Incidentally, Eric Garlap joined us as well. He says he can't wait to. And Eric, you're right. It really is, sincerely. It's a fantastic book. It's a good read. So you've mentioned creativity a couple times, and I know one of the things I think many of us, if not all of us, are looking for is to differentiate ourselves. What do you say? What do you recommend to people who are looking to sort of take that step towards being different, being more creative, either with their demos, maybe with their posts on LinkedIn? What advice do you give? Because I think that there's a lot of people who are sort of maybe standing on the sideline, right? Sort of looking and waiting and sort of wondering, when is the right time? What should I say? What advice do you give to people sort of in that situation?
I would say creativity is not a divine gift. It's a process. So build up routines. For example, I do a challenge with myself 2 or 3 times a year. I take a month, 30 days, where I write down 10 ideas for posts every day, just in the morning. So at the end, I have 300 ideas after 30 days, right? I throw away 50%, definitely. And you get better the more often you do that. But I have lots of ideas for posts. I can't even write them. So whenever you struggle, tell me, right? I'm happy to give you this template. It has more in it because you reflect on yourself. You need to understand, where do you want to go? Who do you want to be, right? How do you see yourself? Who are you? That's a big question, right? And based on that, you can answer a lot of questions and come up with ideas. I also use this in my coaching. So whoever gets coached by me, you will get this daily routine sheet, and I ask you to do this daily. And the results are amazing. Because you train, like, for example, one task is give me a metaphor for your tool or for a feature, or what's an emotional benefit of a functionality in your tool. You think about that. But if you do this daily, you come up with the stuff in conversations with clients. And you ask clients not, okay, do you like my API security tool? Or no, you ask, when was the last time you slept well? Because you know your new HR application is secure. So that's a different kind of asking, but you need to get your brain in this mode. And those are tools that help you.
Yeah. By the way, we could end this conversation right now and walk away, I think, satisfied with the words that you used. Creativity is not a divine gift. What I heard you say, and it's so powerful, Patrick, creativity is a muscle that we can develop and build. And by the way, I'm like you. I have countless lists of ideas for articles and blog posts. And if you're only throwing away 50% of them, because I'm throwing away about 97% of mine. So your ideas must be much better than mine. Incidentally, we have to say hello to Rajesh. And Rajesh, I'm not going to try your last name, but it's good to see you. Glad you joined us. The one thought that I have, Patrick, when I think about putting ourselves out there, which at the end of the day is what we need to do, whether it's considering or working towards becoming a thought leader in our space, or being more creative with our demonstrations, whether that's developing a new approach, a new story, a new methodology. The word that comes to mind is courage. It takes courage to put oneself out there and try something different. Did you discover that for yourself as well? And how did you sort of break through and find the courage to start putting yourself out there?
Yes. Yes to everything. You need the courage. And I think the courage, this is part of my course too. So the first thing we do, we answer the question, why are you sales engineer? What do you get out of it? And why are you doing it? Why do you put yourself out there, right? You are in sales, as we said. So, and finding the courage, I did through philosophy, I would say. So, and this is part of the book also, right? you will have mentioned this or seen this like theme in there. It's a Stoic philosophy. I came across this, I don't know when, years ago, maybe 5-7 years. And then I kept reading on that. And I have a great book called The Daily Stoic from, Ryan Holiday. And it's a perfect collection of wisdom. Actually gifted this to some of my clients last Christmas. So and they tell me they read this daily because there's so much in there. It gives them this kind of courage daily, right? It's mainly about you are responsible for everything in your life. Your situation today is just a result of the decisions of the past. So, and if you start thinking that way and take this responsibility, what can go wrong, right? You need to have the courage. Nobody else will have the courage for you. Right? If you don't have it, if you don't build your life, nobody will. And that's the point, right? And that gave me also the courage to build this corporation, just quit the job and start whatever I wanted. So I was really afraid of doing this. And it slowly goes away after years. I get used to this kind of, right? There's money, there's no money. There are clients, there are no clients. The book works, the book doesn't work. Oh my gosh. Yeah, but it's philosophy for me that helps. So,
yeah. Well, and you in the book you reference the book Steal Like an Artist, and I've read that book as well, by the way. And so before I got even to the acknowledgments and the references, I saw the references to that book, and that's one that I'll recommend to everyone. In fact, it was Steve Bullington from Salesforce who runs the Scout program at Salesforce, who recommended Steal Like an Artist to me. And that's another book that I can't recommend, enough. But I think the point that you made there is so powerful. And that is, I think the best sales engineers are ones that we draw from so many different disciplines, right? And we're such that, the guys, I don't know if you know the guys that run the Sales Burrito podcast, but there's a podcast, the Sales Burrito guys, and it's all about sales engineers. And I asked him one day, how did you come up with Sales Burrito? And one of the guys, he has, he's Spanish American heritage. So that just made sense for me. But he said sales engineers are such an interesting combination of so many different ingredients sort of bundled into sort of one package, right? And that's in essence a burrito, but it's so true, right? We do need to be technical in nature. We do need to be experts. We need to be well read. We need to have a high sales acumen. We need to be people and know how to engage with and interact with people. So I do think that that's what makes our role so particularly unique. And you talked about that so much in your book, which is just one of the things I love. I want to move to the map in just a minute here, but any closing thoughts from you in terms of the book? If I'm picking up the book for the first time, what should I as the reader expect? What do you hope I as the reader get out of picking up this book?
That's that's a great question. I want to entertain and to motivate you, right? When you think right now, like you said, when you're sitting at the sidelines, just waiting for a sign to start the shot, right? Then I hope the book is this thing. Go, right? Write, publish your thoughts. Don't be afraid. There are people you will never convince, right? And I'm pretty aware of that. And there are good reasons not to go online. I see this, yeah, definitely. But if you are someone who says, I have ideas, but how do I start, right? Read the book, talk to me, and let's go, right? I think this is in the book, and I love this concept of a white black swan, no, of a positive black swan. That's not a white swan, but a black swan is typically connotated very negatively, right? There's Nassim Taleb's book, The Black Swan, and he also explains this in a positive way. He used trading for this, right? So when you trade, you expose yourself to positive black swans because the amount of money you can make is endless. And the same is with social. When you expose yourself out there, the possible benefits are endless. And that's the big benefit of it. It's not like I don't want to tell trash to people, or I don't want to come across salesy. This is just your brain, right? Don't believe every thought you think, right? It's not true. Go out there. What you have to say is important. And if it's important just to one person and you can change one person's life, that's amazing, right? Nobody says have 10,000, 100,000 followers. I don't want I couldn't handle them, right? I'm very aware that the few who follow me, well, they like what I do, right? And that's what I'm looking for. I don't need 100,000 and then a lot of haters or something. And I want to stay in my niche. And this is all. And it's not too difficult, but it needs some routine and some discipline, I think, and some starting point. And hopefully the book is the starting point.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's just so powerful. And I think in the book, one of the things you talked about is both followers and quote haters, or you're going to have people who agree vehemently and you're going to have people who disagree vehemently. And if that's the case, that's a good thing. That means you've actually taken a stance, you've made your message very clear, and it might in fact be a tad provocative at times. And that's a good thing. If you don't have people who are disagreeing with you on some level, you're not differentiating yourself. And that brings us back to one of the very first parts of this conversation, was differentiating ourselves, right? And being creative. So love that. I think, and it's, it's interesting, Patrick, I'm inspired as you were talking, I was inspired to share sort of something that happened for me sort of reasonably early in, because my journey's been very, very similar to yours. I mean, I only launched myself a full-time, a year and a half ago or something. In fact, a month before COVID is when I launched full-time, and I thought I had made the biggest mistake of my life, to be honest. And I had a coach work with me, and she said, you need to be posting every day. And she literally gave me a calendar of things I should be posting. And it was a Saturday morning. And her instruction was, post a picture of you doing what you do. And so I thought, oh my gosh. So I pulled a few pictures of me on stage and created this post on LinkedIn. Do you know I had the mouse on the send button for 20 minutes. I couldn't pull myself I couldn't convince myself until after 20 minutes to actually hit send. Do you know I had over, I think, 8,000 views of that post, and I hit, it's probably one of the most popular posts I've ever done, and I came this close to not hitting send. And to me, that's precisely what you're saying. You never know who you're going to affect in a positive way, and you won't know until you put yourself out there and try. All right, so that's the social sales engineer. Let's shift gears a little bit. By the way, we have a few more folks chiming in. Claudio, thanks for your comment. Good to hear from you. And I see a lot of talk on the chat. So it's great to see so many folks. And by the way, I welcome you to ask Patrick any questions, of course, or me if you have any. Let's shift to the map. The map has gotten a great deal of attention, as it should. It's simply brilliant. Do you mind taking a minute and sharing with our listeners, what inspired you to create the map to begin with, and then talk a little bit about how you came up with the different areas on the map?
Mm-hmm. Yes, let's do that. It's serendipity. I can take this. It's really serendipity. That's the first thing. I think you do the same, right? Because I'm kind of have my own company, I think about my positioning every day. So, and I thought about what's going on in this market. And I realized when I founded my corporation, I was in the midst of COVID, right? I had the same feeling like you, like, this is crazy. What are you doing? This is like everyone else is losing jobs, and you do this. Oh gosh, right? But there was no way to stop this anymore. So and I thought, what can we do with the things that also happened? Because there were suddenly, like mushrooms everywhere, right? Those applications for POC management, demo automation, RFP, I don't know, right? And I thought, okay, I spoke to some of those implementers. So whoever coded this, I tried to get in contact and network and speak to them, get 20 minutes on their schedule. And for most of them, it worked. Not everybody, but most of them. So, and I thought, well, this whole thing actually gives me a cycle. Sales process. I can use this in a sales cycle. So, and then I still have those ugly early drawings where I had the sales cycle because I wanted to show this to sales engineering teams and leaders. Like, this is how the world changes. And look, you can actually implement this in a cycle. Like, you start with demo automation, then you go to POC, RFP, right, and so on, and CRM and all this kind of things. I thought, this is powerful, actually. And then it, I don't know, for a month or so, I didn't look at it. And I was actually, I'm currently in a new fantasy novel about the orc shaman. And I needed a map there. And I created this map one evening, and I thought, okay, tomorrow is this presentation with this client. The map was open. And I opened this ugly cycle, right? The circle. And I thought, gosh, what if I would put this on the map? Let's try this, right? And this is how the first iteration came into life, right? And I thought, that's pretty cool. That could work. And I think the first post that I did got also 8,000 views. Like,
yeah,
that's what I remember. But there's my border still. 8,000 was like, what happened here, right? But still, now today there is the website, salesengineeringmap.com, and I update the map every month. So there is an application form. So when you have and you own, if you have a community, if you have a coaching program, if you have a podcast on sales engineering, if you have a CRM, whatever you do, put this into the application form. I will put you on the website. You give me a backlink. I will put you on the map. And with the next version comes out, you're on. So there's also recruitment. I don't want to forget Ikuto, which is the very only pre-sales oriented recruiting team from the UK.
Yeah.
Great guys, Josh and team. And they asked me, can you put us on there? It's of course, right? It's engineering, and there is no competition on this map. it's purely for referencing and showing, actually, hey, if you don't have an idea what's on this map and you are in sales engineering, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Because you're missing a big S evolution, right?
Yes.
Transformation that's going on, right? And this is kind of the positioning I have. So I think we should have a mindset of no competition. That's actually a story of the past. Maybe can I share the story?
Please.
There's an anecdote. So when we worked at MuleSoft, 2015, we had a kickoff in San Diego, and one of the investors came on stage and told the whole group, guys, I envy you because you don't have competition. And we looked at each other, right, and thought, we just lost this RFP, right? We just did this demo, didn't work. We didn't close the deal. What possibly can this person mean, right? That we have no competition. But afterwards, now I understand, because this had all to do with this category play, right? There is a great mindset, a kind of positioning your product, annotated with the methodology, maybe a certain approach, that helps you create your own niche, right? And therefore you have no competition because you are alone in there, right? And you really attract those customers that you that need you, that have this problem you solve. And the stunning thing is, if you go out with a problem mindset, not in a pessimistic way, but share a problem that you solve with your client, right? You share insights. And there are two problems you can go with. And the first is a problem that you think that the client didn't think was solvable, or even more powerful, you found a new problem. Those are the two things. And you should have this as a sales engineer. And you go into the first discovery session with your client, understand the problem you solve, and teach them. This is a big qualification thing. That's a big discovery thing if you have this in mind. And you will have no competition if you do this. I'm convinced.
Those words are so powerful, and I'm reminded of. So I think many of you know Freddie Mangum. He founded Hub, and Hub is on the map, and Freddie and I have gotten to know each other pretty well, and probably about a year ago, he said to me, and I'll never forget these words, and they're such valuable words for SEs as well. He said, Chris, fall not in love with the product, fall in love with the problem.
Yep.
Right. And that is just so powerful. How many of us, even in the pre-sales role, we fall so in love with the tool. I'm sure everybody's heard my saying, he or she who buys a shovel doesn't want a shovel.
Exactly.
They want a hole. But they don't just want a hole, they want a fence, or they want a tree. They don't just want a fence or a tree, they want privacy or shade. Yet we show up talking about the shiny shovel, and we fall in love with the shiny shovel and the blade and the handle and all its wonderment. Yeah. The reality is most people don't care, right? And that's really what you're talking about, is at the end of the day, what problem do you solve? And in fact, and I'm my guess is you do this. I know when I meet with SE leaders or sales leaders, that's what I start with. Like, these are the problems I attempt to address. If you don't have these problems, there's no need for us to talk anymore, right? Now, virtually all of them do, right? That's a whole nother conversation. But it's just so powerful. So, and by the way, I have to say, forever, when I look at your map now, I'm going to imagine little mushrooms popping. Such a good analogy. Where do you see the map going? Is your vision that, the map is just literally going to be sort of the who's who, sort of in the pre-sales sort of landscape?
Yes. So it should be a center, right, where you go and you just see, okay, there's this area and there are those players, right?
Yeah.
What I can see, but I don't have the bandwidth right now, is, of course, going a bit deeper, like compare features.
Right.
Literally say, what are those tools there for? Because I struggle to understand what Vivian does exactly, right? If I've not seen it in action, or PIO or Avnio, it's tough to see. And I've one issue with them also, and this is mostly their marketing is very leader centric, right? Or CRMs or tools like that. It's mainly there to justify funding, right? But I would love to see this be more sales engineer centric. So, and this idea I put a bit in the book, like saying, what does the individual using this tool actually? What are their benefits? And one idea I had was a strengths profile, right? When you put all your data in there, all your deals, what you do, your calls, everything, right? Maybe even sentiment analysis is done or stuff like that. So why can't the tool actually generate a profile of mine? Who am I? Am I the demo and close guy or girl? Or am I a storyteller? Or, right? You know, so, and this would be beneficial for me as an individual. So I look at this and say, okay, I got an understanding of mine, right? And that's a bit missing for me. I would wish this would be in the tools. But I see the point. You need to sell them to somebody. And, so you shape your messages step by step.
Yeah. Incidentally, I think you can expect to hear from Vivian this week. They're going to make sure that you understand them perfectly well. It's my guess. So no, and you know, it's actually a good segue back to the book. You mentioned marketing, and I know in your book you talked about how really Elias, the character in the story, he really set the tone and set a new direction for the fictitious company that he worked for with his new thought leadership and with his new approach, right? And really new sort of business use or business application for the solution. And I think there's so much power there as SEs. We actually do in many cases have a better insight into the best use and application of our platform and our solutions, even than the product folks and the marketing folks at times, because we're on the front line. We hear what customers are looking for. We see the problems they're trying to solve. So you know, a message that I would share to any SE out there is that if you think you see something in the market that marketing is not aware of, and you think to yourself, well, who am I to say? Because I'm just in pre-sales. Don't fool yourself. You have the best seat in the house in as far as what's going on in the market. And you may very well know better than the multi-million-dollar funded marketing team, because you are seeing it firsthand. And that comes through plain and clear in the book. So Patrick, I have a few closing questions that I ask all my guests, sort of the lightning round. Now, before I get there, any closing comments from you on either the map or the book before we get into the lightning round?
I took a walk before I joined this call, and I had one thought that I want to ask you. Maybe
fire away.
It's out of context, right? It just came into my mind. But if I were a recruiter and I had this sales engineering position and I wanted you, how could I convince you to do this job? And how much money do I need to give you?
Is that the Chris White now, or is that the Chris White?
No. I want to have you, because you wrote this book, right? You're a thought leader. You have all those connections. Yeah. You have the skills. And I want to build up something.
So I have to say, and actually, this is the first time anybody's actually done this to me. My last question in the lightning round is, if you could ask me one question, what would it be? And you preempted my question. So I have to give you kudos for that. Let me answer the first part of the question. What would they have to offer me? Yeah. Is right in terms of the job.
What does it be, right? What is it? A software? Is it tool? Is it?
Yeah. There are my brain is firing in about 10 different directions right now. There's a number of ways that I could answer that. the first thought that came to my mind is it ties back to a book by Daniel Pink. The book is Drive. And in Drive, I don't know if you've read it, Patrick, but he talks about the three intrinsic motivators that if we can satisfy in our careers, we will be most satisfied and frankly most successful. And those three are mastery. If we're in a position where we have the ability to develop mastery, very much like thought leadership. The second is autonomy. So if we have, and by the way, you were talking about how your manager gave you a great deal of autonomy, right? And the third is purpose. And those three resonated with me so much. No matter what I do for the rest of my life in my professional career, I would need those three things. I need to wake up knowing that I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I feel purpose in what I'm doing. That's number one. Number two, I need to feel as though I'm a master in my trade and I have the ability to develop that mastery on a continuous basis. And then number three, just a sense of autonomy. And autonomy can come in a number of different ways, by the way. So those are the first three things that come to mind. The other thought that I had, again, it's an interesting question. I was in enterprise architecture for 15 years. Okay, I was a data architect, information architect, right? I mean, as I used to say, I never met a model I didn't love, right? I mean, I was a metadata guy. I never want to sell IT to IT platforms to IT people ever again. I cannot keep up with technology anymore. So if I were to sell anything, I would want to sell to sales leaders. If there are any pre-sales vendors out there that, and then it comes to you asked how much would they have to pay me? Probably a lot more than they'd ever want to consider. But I would love to sell to either sales leaders or pre-sales leaders. And by the way, just like you, that's who I sell to now, right? I mean, who am I selling to on a daily basis? So that's my answer. Does that answer the question as asked?
Yes, of course. There's no right or wrong, right? I think you exposed yourself in a good way. So I understood your motivation, right? And that's part of the question, right? So
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a really good question for everybody to ask themselves, right? What would it take, for anybody listening to this, either live or the recorded version? What would it take someone to offer you the perfect job? What would that look like? And if you find yourself in a situation not in that perfect job, what is it going to take to get yourself there? Right? And sit down with your current employer and say, this is what's most important to me. Right. And Patrick, it took me, I mean, again, being very transparent, I was 52, maybe 51 years old when I officially launched my business. It took me 30 years to finally get to that point where I was doing exactly what I knew I should be doing, right? But every step was an important step on the journey, both the good and the bad, right? So we're all on this journey, and it is just that. It's a journey, right? It's a marathon, as my wife tells me all the time. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? Great question, Patrick. So if I may, and again, like I said, you sort of took the lightning round question, but I will just close with two quick questions for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to invite you to think back to early in your pre-sales career, to a time when maybe you gave a demonstration that didn't go particularly well. And if you can think of one, why not? Why didn't it go particularly well?
I mean, because I think at the beginning I didn't care about the audience, right? I learned my demo. I was new in pre-sales. I was happy that I got the script, that the tool worked. It was all about me, right? I mean, it's easy after 10, 15 years to say what you're doing wrong when you're just starting off. But I think the first biggest mistake is you think it's about you. And that's all the time, right? When you start something new, you want to look good. So you look that the tool works, and if the tool doesn't work, we always had an SAP application we connected to, right? I had this up and running, and I remember I presented to a CIO of a big oil company, and this was very interesting because he fell asleep. He slept very. He didn't sleep much at night. This is what I learned afterwards. But this was one thing, and the minute he was awake, the SAP system didn't go well. So I couldn't actually show him in the tool, and just explained what he would see if the stuff worked. And I spoke to the team in South America before, just 5 minutes before the meeting, and they said, "Yeah, well, it's running, right?" I don't know what happened, but this was the worst meeting in my life, the worst demo in my life. But it was the audience, and it didn't fit really. It was too technically. It was about me.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to look good, because I knew it's a CIO of a very, very big corporation. This is one shot we have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That didn't go too well.
No, I mean, look, you said it all when you said it was all about me, right? And that's the mistake virtually all of us make. So last question, and then we'll wrap things up. Let's turn the tables. Have you been on the receiving end, particularly in your role? I suspect that you recently maybe have seen some demos, have had some people demonstrate their solution to you. Have you been on the receiving end of any demos recently that have been particularly effective and particularly engaging? And if so, what was it about the demo that made it so engaging?
I mean, in my coachings, we train sometimes. I don't do this often because I don't think demos are that important. But we train how to deliver demos, and most importantly, what analogies to use, right? Or metaphors, or some storytelling framework. So that you start actually with the hook, right? That you have a hook in there. Like with a good book, you start in the action, or with a movie, right? So, and I saw some very good demos that were based on this thinking, when people we thought them through. Look, what I see when SEs work longer in a certain corporation with a certain tool, they get bored, right? Because you feel the demo, they know it inside out, but it doesn't take much to say, look, let's change the approach,
right?
Think differently, right? Why do you tell the story in that particular sequence? Yep. Make it very tough. Start with a boom, right? Start very on the point with something surprising, or bring in a video, or bring in an anecdote, right? Yeah, that's what I saw on the receiving end, just viewing, or the storytelling calls. Yes. I do. That's actually one thing. I had this 2 months ago. It's a German company, and they were all engineers, and my task was to train them and make them a bit salesier. Worked, and we had one particular storytelling course where we also used the teaser creation. And during the readout, the CEO was in the room, and she said, after seeing the video of one guy, "Stop here. Don't say anything else because it would ruin it. I have tears in my eyes. This was incredible. And this is amazing." And it truly was. There are people so talented, right? And they don't know, or don't have the desire to show it, right? That you could say, "Please do it. You're so good," right? And they don't believe in themselves. Those are examples I see in this, and I love this because, I think it's the same for you, right? If you see people succeed, that you touched, right? Maybe you touched their life a little bit. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and we've used the words courage a couple times, and sometimes people just need the slightest little nudge to find that courage. So, incidentally, Melanie Pissang had a comment to say. I noticed that she has the same last name as you, so I suspect you may know her. So, yeah, Patrick, we are at our time. Thank you so much for your time and your words. We've had a lot of people online with us. Hopefully, we'll have some folks check out the recording. To those of you who did join us, thank you so much. Patrick, any closing thoughts before we wrap up? Remind folks, where can they find you? Where can they find the book? Where can they find the map?
Everything is online. So I'm on LinkedIn. Just follow me there. The book has an own book page. I'm pretty proud. It has already 400 followers, I think.
That's amazing.
Yeah, after some weeks, I don't know why. the social sales engineer. It's called The Way. Please just go on there. It would be a big thing for me. And the map is on salesengineeringmap.com. Yeah, and what I believe in is sales engineers have the soul of a technician and the heart of a salesperson. So let's follow on this note.
Love it. Fantastic. By the way, Kyle there. Kyle, thanks again for hanging in there. Patrick, great to see you. Let's do this at least once a year. I think you and I have plenty to talk about. Good luck with the book launch, and I'm sure we'll be crossing paths here as we continue on our journeys.
It was a pleasure, Chris. Thanks a lot for inviting me, having me.
My pleasure. Be well, Patrick. We'll talk soon. Cheers all. Bye-bye.